Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do a deep dive into the mindset of a millionaire. Now, before you think this is just about like yachts and mansions, hold on a sec. The material you sent in for this one, it actually digs a lot deeper than just the kind of surface level stuff. We're going to be talking about practical steps and real lessons and the kind of mindset shifts that can really make a difference. So you sent over these excerpts in this document called The Mindset of a Millionaire. And it seems to really push back on a lot of those like get-rich-quick schemes and myths we hear all the time. It really puts the emphasis on like the process and the journey, and I think that's where the real value is. So we're going to unpack a bunch of different ideas, like things like continuous learning and calculated risks, and even tackle that whole like money is evil thing. That thing can really hold a lot of people back. And to help us make sense of all this, and really pull out the most useful insights, we've got our expert here. I'm really curious to get their take on this stuff. So what are the first things that kind of jumped out at me? Was this idea of the lucky millionaire. This myth that success is all about just being in the right place at the right time. Why do you think this idea is so sticky? And how can it actually kind of backfire on people who are, actually trying to build wealth?
Yeah, it's really interesting. As humans, I think we're just kind of drawn to those like rags to riches narratives. They're exciting, they're kind of dramatic, but
Yeah.
the reality is that like most people who build wealth, they do it over time through hard work, smart decisions,
hmm
and yeah, some risk taking too. But the problem with this whole lucky millionaire thing is that it can make people feel like success is just totally out of reach. Like it's just about luck and they just don't have it. And it can really discourage people from even trying.
Yeah. It's almost like it gives people permission
Yeah.
to not even try.
Right.
Like, oh, if I'm not lucky, why bother? But this document, it really stresses that it's not about luck at all. It's about cultivating what they call the millionaire mindset.
Yeah.
So what are some of the core principles of that
Yeah.
that you think our listeners should really pay attention to?
Yeah. So they break it down into three key principles, and I think they all kind of work together. So the first one is this focus on constant learning and growth. And we're not just talking about like money here. Like millionaires are just curious about everything. Their industries, history, psychology, you name it. They're always kind of expanding their knowledge base. And that's what lets them see opportunities that other people might miss.
So it's almost like they're
Yeah.
constantly feeding their minds with
Mm.
new information, new
Mhm.
perspectives. That makes a lot of sense. What's the next principle?
Yeah, so this one is super important. It's about developing strong financial literacy. And it's more than just like knowing how to balance a checkbook or something. It's about understanding how investments work, the different types of assets, how to analyze risk and reward. It's like becoming financially fluent so you can
Mhm.
make decisions that actually build wealth over time.
So they're not just avoiding debt, they're actually like
They're just
strategizing
Yeah.
and making their money work for them. That's a big shift for a lot of people. Okay, what about the third principle?
All right, so the third one might surprise some people. It's about embracing risk and making calculated decisions. Now, this doesn't mean just like throwing caution to the wind and gambling all your money away or something. Millionaires are what you might call calculated risk takers. They carefully assess the potential downsides and rewards before they make a move.
So it's not about being reckless. It's about being strategic, informed,
Right.
not letting fear kind of paralyze them. Now, this document also talks about this idea of building a foundation for wealth, and it lays out some steps. They seem pretty straightforward. Why do you think so many people struggle to actually follow through on these steps, even though they seem pretty basic?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it just comes down to mindset and execution. So the first step they mention is setting clear financial goals. Seems simple enough, right? But so many people have these kind of vague ideas about what they want, but without a concrete plan. Without specific targets and timelines, it's easy to get distracted and kind of lose focus.
Yeah, it's like trying to navigate without a map. You might have a general sense of where you want to go, but you're probably going to end up lost.
Exactly. The second step is developing strong financial habits. Things like automating your savings, resisting those impulse purchases, building those small but consistent actions that really compound over time. Think about it. Even cutting back on like one daily coffee could free up money that you could be investing. And over time, that seemingly small change can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it's amazing how much those little daily choices can add up.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the third step?
This one is probably the hardest. Staying disciplined. Life throws curveballs, temptations are everywhere, and it's easy to fall off track. This is where having systems in place can really help. Things like budgeting apps, accountability partners, or even just setting up those automatic transfers to your savings account.
So it's not just about willpower, it's about setting yourself up for success.
I like that. Now, the document also talks about overcoming obstacles. And one that really stood out to me was this idea of limiting beliefs. So how can someone even identify those beliefs in the first place? And maybe even more importantly, how can they start to overcome them?
So limiting beliefs, these are those kind of sneaky thoughts that we all have sometimes that can really hold us back. Things like, I'm just not good with money, or rich people are all greedy. They often operate on a subconscious level. So it's really important to start paying attention to your self-talk.
Okay, so becoming aware of those thoughts is the first step. But how do you actually change them?
One really powerful way is to look for evidence that contradicts those beliefs. So have you ever actually achieved a financial goal? Do you know anyone who started with nothing and built wealth? Focus on those examples to counter the negative thoughts. It's like reframing the narrative you're telling yourself about money and success.
I like that.
Okay. The document also talks about the importance of mentorship. So what are your thoughts on finding and really benefiting from mentors, especially on your financial journey?
Yeah, mentorship can be so valuable, but it's not just about finding someone successful and expecting them to just hand you all the answers. It's about being a good mentee, being respectful of their time, coming prepared with questions, and most importantly, being ready to actually put their advice into action.
It's a two-way street. You're not just receiving information, you're actively engaging with it, putting it to work. Makes sense. So we've talked about debunking this myth of the lucky millionaire and some of the core principles of building this millionaire mindset. But there's still so much to cover. So let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll dive into some specific strategies and techniques that you can use to start creating real financial success in your own life.
One thing that really stands out in this document is this emphasis on action, like actually applying these principles. It's not enough to just think the right thoughts. You got to actually do the work.
Totally. And that goes back to what we were saying before the break.
Right.
It's not enough to just understand these concepts. You have to actually implement them in your life. And one thing that keeps coming up is this idea of continuous learning. It seems like the folks who are really successful financially, they're always looking for ways to expand their knowledge.
Absolutely. They have this insatiable curiosity, this drive to understand how things work, not just in their own field, but in the world around them. And they don't just stick to books and articles either. They're out there talking to people, going to conferences, always looking for new perspectives and insights.
So they're constantly fine-tuning their mental models,
Right.
always updating their understanding of how the world works. And the document also talks a lot about financial literacy. So what are some practical steps that our listeners can take to boost their financial knowledge? Where do they even begin?
It can definitely feel kind of overwhelming at first, especially with so much information out there. I think a good place to start is with the basics, like budgeting, understanding your credit score, learning about different types of investments. And there are tons of resources available online, from reputable financial websites to educational videos. And don't be afraid to ask for help either. A financial advisor can give you personalized guidance and help you create a plan that aligns with your goals.
Yeah, it's like having a coach in your corner to help you navigate all the complexities of the financial world. Speaking of complexities, the document also talks about calculated risk-taking. So how can our listeners approach risk in a way that feels smart and strategic and not just reckless?
It's all about understanding the nature of risk. Every investment comes with some level of risk, but the key is to find those opportunities where the potential rewards outweigh the potential downsides. It's also important to diversify your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say.
Right? Spread the risk. Make sure you're not overly exposed to any one particular investment. Now, the document also emphasizes setting clear financial goals. Why is this so important? And how can our listeners set goals that are both ambitious and achievable?
Having clear goals gives you something to aim for, like a roadmap for your financial journey. And when you're setting goals, it's helpful to use the SMART framework: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
So instead of just saying I want to be rich, you're actually defining what that means to you.
Yeah.
How much money do you want to have? By when? What steps will you take to get there?
It's about making it concrete, actionable.
Exactly. And break those big goals down into smaller milestones. This makes the whole journey feel less daunting. And you see those little wins to celebrate along the way.
Yeah, it's about building momentum, keeping yourself motivated. Okay, let's talk about something that I think a lot of people struggle with: financial discipline. What are some practical tips for developing strong financial habits that actually stick? One of the most effective strategies is to automate your savings. Set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your savings or investment accounts. That way you're consistently putting money aside before you even have a chance to spend it.
Pay yourself first.
Right.
Make your future financial well-being a priority. Okay, what are some other tips for building financial discipline?
Tracking your spending is huge. You can use a budgeting app or just a simple spreadsheet. This awareness can really help you see where you might be overspending and make adjustments. And don't underestimate the power of delayed gratification. Before you make a big purchase, give yourself a cooling off period. This can help you avoid those impulse buys and make sure you're only spending money on things that truly align with your values and your goals.
Yeah, becoming more mindful and intentional with your spending, not just reacting to every want or desire that pops up. Okay, this document also emphasizes the importance of overcoming limiting beliefs. Can you talk a bit more about how these beliefs can sabotage our financial success?
Limiting beliefs are those.
Negative thoughts.
Yeah, those negative thoughts and assumptions that we sometimes have about ourselves and our capabilities. Things like, I'm just not good with money, or I'll never be able to afford that. And these beliefs, they can really become self-fulfilling prophecies if we're not careful.
You create this invisible ceiling that keeps us from reaching our full potential. So how can we start to dismantle those limiting beliefs?
Awareness is the first step. Start paying attention to your self-talk. What are those negative thoughts that pop up when you think about money? Once you've identified them, you can start to challenge them.
So it's about becoming aware of those negative scripts that are running in the background
Yeah.
and consciously choosing to rewrite them. So how can we reframe those negative thoughts into more empowering beliefs?
One powerful technique is to look for evidence that contradicts those limiting beliefs. So have you ever achieved a financial goal? Do you know anyone who started with nothing and built wealth? Focus on those examples. Use them to challenge the negative thoughts.
Yeah, find proof that those limiting beliefs just aren't true. What are some other strategies for reframing those negative thoughts?
Another good one is to surround yourself with positive influences. Find mentors, read books, listen to podcasts that promote a positive and abundant mindset. It's about immersing yourself in an environment that supports your growth and aspirations.
So it's not just about changing your thoughts, it's about changing your environment too. That makes a lot of sense.
And remember, it's a process. Overcoming limiting beliefs takes time and effort. Be patient with yourself and celebrate those small victories along the way.
This has been a really insightful conversation about the practical steps we can take to cultivate this millionaire mindset. We've covered a lot of ground, but I'm really excited to explore this final section of the document, the one that focuses on the power of action.
Yeah, I'm ready to dive into that. This is where all these principles come together and translate into tangible results.
Let's jump into it now and discover how we can turn knowledge into action and start creating lasting financial success in our own lives. Welcome back. So we've been talking about this millionaire mindset, uncovering the principles and strategies that really drive financial success.
But now it's time to focus on the most crucial element, actually taking action.
Couldn't agree more. You know, knowledge is potential, but it's action that turns that potential into something real. And this last part of the document, it really highlights that, like the power of taking those steps towards your goals.
Yeah, they keep saying just start, which sounds so simple.
Right.
But I think so many people get stuck in planning mode. They're always prepping and never actually taking that leap. So how do we break through that?
I think fear is a big part of it. Fear of failing, fear of the unknown, fear of making the wrong choice. But action is the antidote to fear. The more you act, the more confident you become.
So it's about getting out of your head and just doing something, even if it's small. Exactly. Start with something manageable, something achievable. And remember, you don't need to have all the answers before you begin. You'll learn and adjust along the way.
It's about embracing that journey,
Right.
being willing to adapt as you go. Now, the document also highlights the importance of mentorship. So how can our listeners find and cultivate those relationships with mentors who can really guide them on their financial journey?
Be proactive. Identify people you admire, people who have achieved the kind of success you're looking for, and reach out to them. Express your interest in learning from them. And remember, mentorship is a two-way street. Be respectful of their time. Come prepared with specific questions. And be ready to actually put their advice into practice.
It's about building a genuine connection and showing that you're committed to learning and growing.
Okay. The source material also mentions this idea of embracing a growth mindset. Can you talk a little bit about how that mindset contributes to financial success? Sure. So a growth mindset is the belief that your abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort and learning. It's the opposite of a fixed mindset, where people see their talents as just predetermined, unchangeable. With a growth mindset, you're more likely to embrace challenges, persevere when you face setbacks, and just constantly seek improvement.
So it's about seeing obstacles as opportunities, not as roadblocks.
Exactly. And this applies to everything, not just finances. When you believe you can grow and evolve, it unlocks so much potential.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive into the mindset of a millionaire we've explored. Continuous learning, financial literacy, calculated risk-taking, goal setting, discipline, overcoming those limiting beliefs we all have, the power of mentorship, and the importance of a growth mindset.
It's been a really great overview of what goes into building financial success. But like we've been saying, it's not just about the money. It's about developing a mindset that leads to a more fulfilling and purposeful life.
Absolutely. It's about using your resources to create the life you want, to make a
Sure.
difference, to leave a positive impact.
I think that's a great way to put it. So as we wrap up here, I want to leave our listeners with this. The journey to financial success. It's a marathon, not a sprint. There will be bumps in the road. But with the right mindset, the right strategies, and the right support, you can achieve anything you set your mind to.
So well said. And remember, it's not about luck. It's about making informed choices, taking consistent action, and never stop learning. So thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the mindset of a millionaire. We hope you've gained some valuable insights that will empower you on your own financial journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep striving for those dreams.